What's good people, and welcome back to the channel here on Crewboy Productions. My name is BK, and this is the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy podcast, episode number 78, Network TV Updates. And in this episode, I'll be going through some network TV shows that are back in production, some casting changes of the great shows coming in the fall here in September and October, specifically about NBC, ABC, and CBS shows. So that's what I'll be getting into. What's going on, everybody? I hope everybody is doing very well. Glad to be back doing another episode. Hope you all are doing well. Let me know in the comments what is one fun thing that you have done this summer or that you are looking forward to doing in August as the summer continues and it winds down. Let me know. So I'm going to be talking about these network TV shows, and there's going to be a constant Dick Wolf theme, and let's get into it. So these shows are now back in production, meaning that they are filming so that we can all enjoy and watch these shows when late September and October rolls around. Specifically, first I want to talk about there have been a lot of the cast and crew on social media. And also, before I continue, this episode is part one of two. Part one, I'm focusing on the network TV shows. And then I'm going to do episode 79 is going to be part two, where I would do the same thing, but I will be doing it for streaming TV shows, along with nerdy notes all along the way in both episodes. This is part one. Subscribe for more for part two, as that will be episode number 79 on the streaming shows, your Netflix, your HBOs, Disney Plus. So that'll be the next one. Okay, now, as I said before, some cast and crews have been on social media posting videos and pictures of them to tell everyone that, hey, we're back in production. So I've seen some clips and pictures like from the cast of The Rookie. They're back in production for season 8. I've also seen some things from the One Chicago cast, from those Chicago Med, Fire PD. They're back in production. And also there's one I saw from NCIS. There's a picture of Katrina Law, Sean Murray, and Wilmer Valderrama. It's on Katrina's Instagram account. They're all standing tall with their vests on in some type of greenery, just to say like, hey, we're back in production. So the shows will be premiering late September and early October for us to watch, whether you watch it live or you watch it on the streaming platform. So that's cool to see. And we've also seen some things as well with the 911 shows, but I'll get to that later. So first, casting updates and changes. I'm going to talk about the One Chicago Wednesday, and that refers to Chicago Med, Chicago PD, and Chicago Fire. So first, I want to talk about Chicago PD and Chicago Fire. These first two stories come from Emily Longretta from Variety. These articles were published on June 26th and July 22nd. 2025 respectively. And let's talk about first cast members exiting. So back in April, right before the season finale of Chicago PD, it was revealed or announced that the actress Toya Turner would not be returning to Chicago PD for season 14. She played the character of Officer Kiana Cook, and she had a post on Instagram as well as this article, part of this being in Variety. So I'm going to read that quote. And in terms of what she said, comes from Toya Turner. Quote, "My time on Chicago PD has come to a close. This show challenged me, sharpened me, and revealed what I'm made of. I have evolved through this experience, both as an artist in my craft, and I'm walking away with depth, clarity, and momentum for whatever comes next." Turner wrote on Instagram on Thursday. Quote, "To the cast and crew, thank you for the warmth, the laughter and the generosity you brought every day. It was an honor to share the screen and the set with such talent, end quote. So she was a new character, brand new character that came on in season 13. And if you watch Chicago PD, her character started off as a patrol officer, and then she helped out the intelligence team with the case, and she was able to get off patrol and help them solve a case. They left her a little bit, then came back to her. Long story short, she eventually came on the intelligence team, and then she was a member of the team for the rest of the season. But as I said before, she is leaving the show. She will not be returning. And so that is a cast member leaving Chicago PD. Now let's talk about someone coming into Chicago PD per this same Variety report. Let's talk about Ariane Mandy. She is reportedly going to be coming in to Chicago PD for the next season. Appears she's going to be replacing Toya Turner. And if you don't know who Ariana Mandy is, if you watch The Night Agent, specifically season 2 that just finished up earlier this year, she played the character of Noor. She was the one that was trying to defect from her country, that was helping Peter give her the information, is trying to get her family out. And so she was recently on The Night Agent. She was in all of the episodes, and some of her other previous works include the L Word Generation Q. She was in 28 episodes of that. She was also in one episode of Hawaii Five-0 back in 2018, and one episode of NCIS LA. And of course, there is a Dick Wolf connection, as she was on FBI season 7 for one episode. So because of that relationship, she is now going to be a series regular for the full season on a Dick Wolf show for more than one episode. So as I will mention, there's a thing at the end I'm going to give more detail about the relationships that actors have with Dick Wolf. So I'll be getting into that as well. Stay tuned for that. She'll be coming on Chicago PD this coming season. So now let's move on to the next one Chicago show, and I'm talking about Chicago Fire. Now, this show has multiple people that left the show this past season, and this show had 3 cast members leave. All 3 of them will not be returning, but one will return for a limited time. I will get to that soon. So this story comes from Liza Ecobis from people.com. This article was published back on July 18th. 2025. However, when this story broke back in April, it was announced that Michael Broadway, that is the actor's name, and his character was Jack Damon. He wasn't on for too long. He was only on for 17 episodes between season 12 and season 13 of Chicago Fire. He was Severide's half brother. I believe Severide discovered this news at the end of season 12, and then he was in a couple more episodes in season 13. And so he was not on for too long. He was on for a very short time, so he will not be returning for the next season for Chicago Fire. The next character, Darren Ritter, he's been on for much longer. The actor's name is Daniel Kyrie. So he was on for 131 episodes since season 7. He did 2 episodes on Chicago PD. So he's been on for much longer. So I feel much more of a connection with his character because he's been on for so long. But he's not going to be returning for the show as well. And I also have a quote for him I want to read a little bit shorter. And Daniel Kyrie wrote on Instagram, quote, "I'll miss this character and it's time to move on." He wrote alongside a emoji face. "Thank you to the cast, crew, and the awesome fans," end quote. And so he will not be returning to Chicago Fire. And then I want to get to another story about him, but I want to get to this final actor that is leaving the show, and that is Jake Lockett. He played the character of Sam Carver on Chicago Fire. He was on a little less than Daniel Kyrie, but still a good significant chunk, more than the Jack Damon character. He was on for a total of 55 episodes. He's been on since season 11. He did one episode on Chicago PD, but he will not be returning to Chicago Fire. And I remember back when this news came out. At the time, Chicago Fire was not renewed for a new season. And there was a story coming on to say that Jake Lockett and I think Daniel Kyrie, both of them, regardless if the show was going to be renewed or if it was going to be canceled, they were not coming back regardless of what was going to happen. So I do remember that was a thing that was floating around also. Now, getting back to Daniel Kyrie, I mentioned that somebody is going to come back for a limited time, and that person is Daniel Kyrie. So this story is fairly recent, and he announced he's coming back to Chicago Fire for a limited time. For most likely it's going to be episode 1, and to give his character a proper send-off, because he was not written off properly. If you watch Chicago Fire, there's a lot of changes going on at Firehouse 51 with all the changes with the fire chief and all the things that are going on with the administration on Chicago Fire within the show. And so he's coming back to do a limited time. I would probably similar to, this is just my thoughts, similar to what the character Blake Gallo did when he left the show, but then he came back and he was in briefly one episode and his character got a proper send-off. So I imagine that this is going to be the same thing as well. And so Daniel Kyrie, he posted a picture on social media, and it's a picture of him and Hanako Greensmith and Jocelyn Hudson. Both of those play the paramedics on the show. You may know them by their character's name as Violent and Novak. So the two of them are in a picture with Daniel Kyrie. Obviously, they're back. They're filming the episodes right now. So Hanako Greensmith, she plays the character Violent. She's been on since 2020. She's got 91 episodes and counting. And then the character of Novak, she just came on in 2024. And she's been on for 27 episodes and counting. And again, both of those characters are the paramedic. That is Chicago Fire. So 3 actors are leaving Chicago Fire, one of them coming back for a limited time. Let me know in the comments, did you know about that? Or were you aware of that? So if so, let me know in the comments. Who are replacing the 3 people that are leaving Chicago Fire? So for right now, it's just one person that has reportedly been announced that is coming into Chicago Fire, a brand new person. And this story comes also from Emily Longretta via Variety. This is going to be Brandon LaQuinta. Brandon LaQuinta, he is going to be joining Chicago Fire in season 14. If you don't know who Brandon LaQuinta is, his previous show, he was in The Good Doctor that ended a little bit ago. And I watched The Good Doctor, I enjoyed that show. If you remember, his character had a love interest. He had a crush on the character of Dr. Allen that was played by Bria Simone Henderson. His character had sobriety issues going on. They went on one date, they were on again, off again, and then eventually that show did get canceled, but it did get a proper series finale, and spoiler alert, the characters did ended up being together as they did a time jump in that show, in The Good Doctor. But so he was in that show. He was also in 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. He was also on Party of Five, the Party of Five reboot in 2020. The original Party of Five was in 1994 on Fox. There is a Dick Wolf connection, as Brandon LaQuinta was on a executive produced Dick Wolf show, and a show that was created by Dick Wolf's son, Elliot Wolf. That show was called On Call. It premiered earlier this year in January. I did watch it, all 8 episodes. I enjoyed it. It was really a different kind of cop drama. It was on Amazon Prime Video, so it's on now. You definitely should check it out. But Dick Wolf was the executive producer of that show, and so he worked for Dick Wolf there. Now he's coming on to work with Dick Wolf from a streaming show to a network show. So once again, it pays to work with Dick Wolf. That is the Chicago Fire. In terms of the other two people that could replace the two people that are leaving, I haven't seen anything that has been announced as of yet. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Okay, let's move on to another Dick Wolf show. This time we're going to talk about FBI. And this actress, Juliana Aiden Martinez, she is joining the cast of FBI as a series regular. And I'm pretty sure those of you who watch Law and Order SVU will know who Juliana is, as she was just in Law and Order SVU. She was in 22 episodes. She only just came on this past season 26. She was the character of Detective Silva. So that was her playing that character. And now she's coming on to FBI so she's going from NBC going over to CBS to do that show, from NYPD to the FBI in terms of her character. This story comes from Nelly Andreeva via Deadline. The story was published back on July 14th, 2025. And Juliana's previous projects, she was on 911 season 7, episode 8. So really recently, and I didn't even realize it. I actually went back and rewatched a portion of that episode. If you remember that episode, Bobby had went on into the desert on an off day to find the person to repent to with this Minnesota fires. And the person that he was looking for was, and I'm going to be careful when I say this, was Malcolm Jamal Warner's character. He was on that show, and we all know that unfortunately he has passed away. So rest in peace to him, and love and thoughts to his family as they are going through this difficult time. And then I'm going to try to pivot from that as best as I can. So Juliana's character was helping Bobby's character, giving him directions to find Bobby, and then she did the same for Athena. So she was in that episode of 911. She was also in an episode of The Blacklist back in 2021, and so that is Juliana. Okay, that is enough Dick Wolf shows for now. I will return. I have some nerdy notes about Dick Wolf towards the end of this episode. Stick around. Let's segue into 911, as I just talked about it. 911 and 911 Nashville. Both of those shows will be premiering on Thursday, October 9th. At 8 and 9 p.m. respectively on linear television, and then they will be, obviously you can watch it on Hulu and Disney Plus the next day. In terms of the 911, that show is created by Ryan Murphy, and if you don't know who Ryan Murphy is, he is the guy behind the show Glee, which I did watch because of the music. And so he is the creator, showrunner of these 911 shows. 911 Lone Star was canceled, but it got a proper series finale. And now we have this new show in the 911 world called 911 Nashville. That's where the new show is going to be. And at one point, when they were thinking about having a new 911 show, they did consider doing a 911 Las Vegas. That was a story that was floating around, but they ultimately decided to do 911 Nashville. And so that show will be premiering on October 9th. But I want to focus in on 911 Nashville. One of the cast members, a series regular, is LeAnn Rimes. But before I get to that, I want to mention this other story. This story comes from Jennifer Moss via Variety. This is a recent story, just came out, published August 7th, 2025. The country music superstar Kane Brown. He will be on episode 1 of 911 Nashville. He'll be in some type of concert scene within the show, and it makes sense because the show is called 911 Nashville, and Nashville is the country music capital of the world. You can always say, like, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Where you can make it in Nashville, you can make it anywhere in terms of country music. And I have the full link to this article about Kane Brown comment on the show, as well as all of these articles. The links will be in the description. Now, I have a fun nerdy note about LeAnn Rimes. She's going to be a regular on 911 Nashville. Of course, LeAnn Rimes is a country legend, music superstar in her own right, as she has been around for a long time. She has also been acting for a long time, since the late 90s. And my nerdy note is that LeAnn Rimes, in her younger days, she did an episode she came on an episode of Moesha back in the 90s. She came on season 4, episode 13 of Moesha. The episode title was Oh My God, Fanatic. It came on February 1999. And for those of you that remember Moesha, that was a great sitcom back in the day. LeAnn Rimes came on that show. And so that's just a pretty cool fact I just kind of stumbled upon when doing my research, that she appeared on Moesha as herself back in that episode. So go check that out. Okay, so that is all the updates I have in terms of the shows. So now I want to get to the Dick Wolf nerdy notes here. And I've mentioned a couple of people that have worked on a Dick Wolf show and gone on to another Dick Wolf show. So these are some that have done that and done it for a much longer time. They have a little bit longer working relationship with Dick Wolf. Let's start off with Edwin Hodge. Edwin Hodge, he was initially on Chicago Fire. He was only on for 15 episodes from 2021 to 2022. But then, because of having that working relationship with Dick Wolf, he then got to go on to FBI Most Wanted. And he came on in 2022, and so he ended up being a series regular on that for 57 episodes. FBI Most Wanted was recently canceled this season, which I disagree with, but that's just cool. You work with Dick Wolf, and then you get on for a longer period of time. Next, Dylan McDermott. He was on Law and Order Organized Crime back when it was on NBC on the first season. He was the big bad guy that they were trying to take down during that season. And on FBI Most Wanted, the leader of that fugitive task force on FBI Most Wanted, that actor, he left the show. And so then, I don't know how it works, but eventually Dick Wolf thought of Dylan McDermott to go on and do this show. And so he left Law and Order Organized Crime, and then he went over to FBI Most Wanted to take the place of that actor. That actor was Julian McMahon, and unfortunately, he also has recently passed away. So rest in peace to him as well. Love and thoughts and prayers to his family. He's done a lot of great work. He was also in one of the Fantastic Four films back in the day. He played the character of Dr. Doom. So Dylan McDermott went on to be on FBI Most Wanted. Then these last two are people that have a little bit longer relationship with Dick Wolf. And now I want to talk about Elena De La Garza. She was on the original Law and Order. When I say the original Law and Order, I mean the original Law and Order with the cops, and then the show transitions to the lawyer. So she was Ada Kana Rabrisa. She was on for 85 episodes from 2006 to 2010. And so years later, FBI was created on CBS. And so Elena De La Garza came on to FBI season 2. She's been on since 2019, and she's been in 115 episodes and counting. She plays the character of SAC Isabella Castillo. So she's the leader of the Jock in that show. So she's worked with Dick Wolf for 10 years. So pretty cool. And then the last person I want to talk about, this person has worked with Dick Wolf for 30 or so TV seasons, over 25 years. And I'm talking about S. Apathida's Murkison. She was on the original Law and Order, but she was on much longer than Elena de la Garza. S. Apathida's Murkison was on Law and Order from the beginning. She was on Law and Order from season 1 to season 20. And so she was on for 20 seasons, and that means she was on Law and Order from 1991 to 2010. That's a total of 391 episodes. So that is a long working relationship with Dick Wolf. And then years later, Chicago Med comes around, and now she's on that show. She's been on that show since the very beginning, since season 1, and now they're about to go into season 10 of Chicago Med, which that is going to be premiering October 1st, 2025. On the Law and Order show, if you heard, she was Lieutenant Van Buren. She was the lieutenant of the detectives on Law and Order. So that's who you would know her as, Lieutenant Van Buren on Law and Order. And on Chicago Med, she is the hospital administrator. She plays, as everyone calls her, Ms. Goodwin or Sharon Goodwin. So that is the person you see on Chicago Med. So that is all the TV updates that I have for you in terms of network TV. Again, this is part 1 of part 2. Part 2 will be about the streaming shows, a couple of streaming shows from Netflix, from HBO, Disney Plus, a quick Peacock update with one of those shows. And so subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments, are any of these shows that I covered, do you watch them? And if so, let me know which one do you watch and which one is your absolute favorite and you're excited for it to come back, whether it's one of those ones, the ones I went deeper into, or one of the other networks or shows. And so that is going to be mostly all I have for you today. So like I said, subscribe for more. Follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music. I am on all those different podcast platforms. And I have also started a blog. I am now doing some writing content, and you can check that out at the sillynerdyandwordy.blogspot.com. I'll leave a link in the description. The first blog is up. It's about the Superman episodes, and I'll just be posting blogs about movies I see and I do episodes for. And then there'll also be up things that I write about, movies that I watch that I don't do episodes for. So you can check those out and give it a read there. All right. So until next time, we will talk soon.